when it comes to this project, what we're doing is we're using 115 grain round nose plated bullets, copper plated bullets at, like I said, 115 grains with blue dot, Alliant powder blue dot. According to this manual, for a 115 grain bullet, it says copper plated, or what does it say here? For a 115 grain jacketed bullet, blue dot, I should use a maximum of 8, or start at 8 grains. And I'm at 7.9, so that's pretty close. You can be a little bit on the lower side to be safe, because these numbers tend to be kind of almost the max numbers in some cases. Really though, this type of ammunition is really more plated, copper plated. There really isn't any blue dot here. That shouldn't be too much of a concern. I've talked to reloaders and they said as long as the bullet weight's the same, the powder really doesn't matter a whole lot. There might be a slight difference in performance, but it really ultimately doesn't matter. And I've seen other manuals use blue dot for 115 grain bullets of all kinds for 8.2 grains, 8.1 grains, so being at 7.9 grains should be good and should suffice. So those are going to be the metrics we use for this reload video, and we'll go from there. So the first thing you have to do is deprime these, and I'll do that right now. All you have to do is take this tool that you use to hammer out or stamp out or pop out the primer. What you do is you take this tool here, this deprimer or decapper thing, and then you put the cartridge holder, the one that has an empty hole at the bottom like that, put it on top, stick your deprimer in there, make sure it's seated in the middle because it's very easy to get it off center, as you can kind of see right now. Take your mallet and pop it hard like that, and then your primer's out. And then you just start doing that for the rest of these. We're going to do 5 at a time here. Easy peasy. So now you have your first 5 cases that have been deprimed. Now we have to, usually I would take my cleaning tool and clean these out, but in the interest of time and since they're once fired, I'm just not going to bother doing that. What I'm going to do is bring out my trusty little brass, I don't know what you want to call it, basically my brass holder, so I can spray it down with lube. So we'll stick these 5 here. Then I will take this spray liquid lube, which I've been using for a while now. That's called Dillon Case Lube, or Dillon Case Lubricant. It's great. It works for everything, and just a few sprays and you're set. We'll do that over here real quick. We'll take that there. You can kind of see that. A couple squirts there. A couple squirts there. Smells great. And then we'll just set this over here for a few minutes to dry up, and then we'll start reloading the ammo. This is a nice little tool you should always have that you use so that you can stick into the case like that and basically clean it out a little bit. It makes a big difference when you're putting those bullets in there, especially when they're not boat-tailed, because you'll find that a lot of times you put them in there, they'll get a little crooked off center. Shouldn't affect performance, but you want to get it as centered as possible on the first try. Okay, so we have a kit, we have our materials, we have our components. Let's get started. All right, those have dried off a little bit, so I'm gonna go ahead and begin or resume my process here. I am going to use the priming tool that comes with the kit just so you can kind of see how it's used. I personally prefer to use the hand squeeze one that has a little tray on it. It deviates, it makes you have to deviate from the procedures that are written here in the manual or in this fold-out manual. So I'm not going to do that for this presentation. I may do that at some other time. But you're going to need this, and the first thing before you put the primer in is you got to resize the case. And the way we're going to do that is take this resizer, which like most kits has a bottom end where you resize and a top end where the bullet falls down when you're about to finish. But we're going to stick the case in here like this. And then I'm going to take my mallet. I'm going to do this by hand here visually so you can kind of see how it looks. As you can see, it's almost flush. You don't have to get it 100% flush. In fact, sometimes I've discovered it's a little better not to. I'm going to put this on the floor and hammer it down just a little more. So you can see how flush it is there. Now, next step, get your primers out. Best to do this whole process one at a time. So I'm going to get my primers out. I'm going to put my fingers over them so I can only get one out, because that's all I need to start. Close that up. You're supposed to use small pistol primers for all 9mm reloads, and that's what we have here. Put that down into the primer holder. And since this is Winchester primers, it's got a little red stuff on the top there, so you kind of know which side's up. If you don't, you shouldn't be reloading. But in any event, let's go ahead and do that. Then you put your case, as such as it is here, line it up. Let me put it there. You can kind of see it here. It lines up. Then take this long metal rod, not the one with the pointy end because that's going to screw up your primer, but get this flat-ended one, stick it in there, and then you're just going to hammer it until you feel it give a little bit. And I mean hard too. You want to do it hard. If you do it light, it's going to take forever. Doing that a couple of times allows you to pop it out here of the case so it's loose. And as you can see, it's perfectly flush and set and ready to go. So take that out. Now you put that primer setter aside, and then you use just the standard case holder here. Then you'll use this for the rest of the procedure or process. We'll take the empty case. Actually, so we stick this case back in the case holder. Now we get the powder out. Now the fun part begins. If you've never seen Blue Dot, it's aptly named because in the little powder that you see there, and you probably can't see it too well, in the powder in there, there's a lot of these are basically flakes. I'm not used to this. And the flakes are colored blue, so there's no mistaking what exactly it is that you're putting in here. Unlike other powders, this one seems to use the most amount of powder, I guess the most amount of grams in weight, I guess because of the shape or design or whatever the case may be. So we're going to turn on our scale. You probably can't see that too well, but it's going to zero out. Actually, turn it off and put the thing that we use to pour it on there so it'll zero out with that on there. In fact, let's see if I can get a little closer here. And then we're going to start pouring. Now this isn't completely full, but that's okay because you're going to need almost 2 pours of this stuff. You can see we're getting up there to, I'm going to do this at, a little too high. I'm going to do this at 7.9. That's a pretty optimal amount. It's slightly under, and for some reason this scale doesn't get to exactly 8 grains of powder perfectly very often, so I'm just going to set it at 7.9. You may or may not be able to see that there, but as you can see, 7.9 grains. So we have our powder, and we're going to pour it into this case here, like so. Tap it a few times so you can get all those grains in there. You're going to notice that this is pretty damn full. If you look at the case up close, that is really close to the rim, and that's just the way that powder is. So when you're reloading, make sure the bullets you have aren't too big or too heavy. In fact, that might be the reason why you don't see Blue Dot on some of the really large 9mm bullets, because you just plumb can't knock it down deep enough. In any event, we're done with that, so we'll put that back. Let's get the scale out of the way here. So we have our powder, we have this here. Now we turn this up the other direction, stick it over the case, then we get our bullet, drop it down the little tube, and then using this tool here, we're going to seat the bullet down. Now, one thing I want to tell you is this thing is already set all the way up here when you first get it. Let me see if we get close up. This item is threaded way deeper than it is right now, so basically you want to probably get it out to just about pinky length to set it right. Maybe a little less so you don't set the bullet too deep, because that can happen. So we're going to set this here. You can see there's a little bit of a gap there. That's about the distance that we're going to shove this bullet down. Then you take your mallet, zoom out a little, take your mallet, tap it down a few times until you hear it seat properly. And that, my friends, is it. This is a really easy job to do. The last step you need to do, like with every bullet, and I'll just do it on this one here so you can see it, is measure the overall length, which should be under 29.5 centimeters. And we're at 28.8 and thereabouts. So it's a pretty ideal depth. Now some of you may not have this, or some of you may be wondering, well, what's the optimum depth? That's hard to say. Let me show you. If you look at these bullets here, this is the bullet that we just reloaded. And this is the bullet from the PMC stuff. And as you can see, it's a hollow point. It's noticeably shorter, so that means you can have a shorter bullet, thereabouts. This bullet here is from Bitterroot Valley. It's reloaded. I think it's reloaded. And it has kind of a funny shaped, conical nosed bullet. It's good for plinking. It's not terribly accurate, and I don't really like it that much. But you can see that that's significantly taller than these two here. In fact, if we measure that, let's see what our little meter says. It's the size on that is. That's 29.38. That's real close to the maximum length. And you'll know it because when you try to feed it through a magazine, it won't feed if it's too damn long. So in any event, that's pretty much it. It's pretty easy to reload this stuff, guys. And we will take this out to the range. Or I should say this bullet here. We'll take these out to the range and test them out. And that, my friends, is all she wrote.